Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, foolish, desolators, peasants, vassals. I'm a useful idiot, and today I would like to state the obvious and say that war with Iran is inevitable. As we all know, it's not a matter of whether it will happen, it is when it will happen. And one of the reasons why we know that war with Iran is inevitable is because the war already started. It's been going on for some time now. And so what we have is Iran developing nuclear power, and there has been scant evidence that they are developing nuclear weapons, but the international community has a number of bad actors who want to convince everyone that they do. And I don't want to argue here about whether or not they are arming themselves with a nuclear weapon. Frankly, even if they are working on a nuclear weapons program, I don't feel like it's a threat. If they are developing a nuclear weapon, it's merely a political bargaining chip, and that's what most nations have used nuclear weapons for since the time they were used on Japan at the end of World War II. So since then, it's been a bargaining chip and an equalizer, and that's what Iran would use it for. So certainly they might have a little more clout in the Middle East, but I have serious doubts about whether they would actually ever have any intentions of launching a nuclear bomb towards Israel or the United States, and whether they would arm terrorists. But we can't rule that out. That said, I think the chances are fairly slim, and I tend to believe their claims that they want nuclear power for their energy needs, because having looked at what their energy demands and needs are in Iran, the facts bear out that they need to find sources for more energy. And but let's get back to the fact that the war has already been going on for some time, and the reason why we know that is because Israel and the United States have launched viruses and cyber attacks against Iran and their nuclear facilities. And the United States specifically classifies cyber attacks as military attacks, and has stated that we would retaliate if known state-sponsored cyber attacks occurred against the United States. But we have no problem launching preemptive cyber attacks against the Iranians. And then more specifically, we have Israeli Mossad and United States CIA and Israeli Special Forces and United States Special Forces on the ground in Iran, and they are active. They are assassinating key figures, assassinating officers, blowing up depots, sabotaging facilities, murdering Iranian scientists, and wreaking all sorts of havoc. Very provocative activities. And I would even suggest that the Iranians have shown remarkable restraint, considering the fact that foreign agents and military forces are active within their country as we speak. So it's rather ironic that there's a lot of saber rattling by the United States and Israel against Iran, talking about their provocative actions, when you want to define what provocative actions are, that would be what the United States and Israel are doing in Iran. So another part of this quotient, as far as the war on Iran that is inevitable and is already in progress. And that is the fact that we don't know if Israel is going to make a preemptive strike within the next few days, weeks, and or months during this election cycle. Very interesting development if that does happen. And of course, as an American citizen, I don't appreciate the United States being geopolitically blackmailed by Israel into going in with them on this war, because should Israel start something, America will have to be drawn into it. And of course, the other factor to think about, should this attack unfold, is whether the true intentions were for the U.S. to just set up Israel and look like we had no choice and were dragged into it, and make Israel the fall guy. And that would certainly be a strategic possibility. So something to consider. We won't really know how they want to set this up and who they want to portray in what way. That said, another reason why we know the war with Iran is inevitable is the fact that it was on the Wesley Clark list that Wesley Clark presented, that the United States has a list, the Defense Department, of 7 countries whose regimes needed to be changed. And this list apparently was drawn up in the 90s. So they've had all these countries in their sights for quite some time. And all the other countries on that list, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Iraq, Afghanistan, have all capitulated. The only 2 left are Syria and Iran. Syria is in the midst of regime change right now. Iran is the only one on the list. That list will be completed, I promise you. And Iran will eventually have to be attacked one way or another, sooner or later. So if it doesn't happen before the election cycle, it will happen in 2013. And once again, we have this trumped-up situation where we have less evidence of weapons of mass destruction and a nuclear program in Iran than we did in Iraq, which, of course, nothing panned out there in spite of all the warnings. And also, we have to look at, as I pointed out in my video, Iran is not our enemy. Iran also has no history of being an aggressor in that region. And they haven't participated in the wars against Israel in the past. And Iraq was the aggressor when they had the 10-year Iraq-Iran war back in the 80s. So, in fact, I pointed out that the Iranians showed remarkable restraint considering Iraq used chemical and biological weapons against them. And Iran had them and did not use them. And another historical point that people need to remember is that when the American puppet government and the Shah was set up in Iran, after America toppled their government in 1953, their democratically elected leader, the CIA and the U.S. toppled his government and put the Shah in power. The Shah ruled with an iron hand for many, many years. And the United States had no problem supplying Iran with nuclear technology under the Shah. So America is actually responsible for helping Iran start up their nuclear program. And of course now we have the added irony of the U.S. building 4 nuclear reactors in the United Arab Emirates while we shake our finger at Iran for developing their own nuclear power plants. So there's a synopsis. I do want to mention one last thing, and that's the fact that it's interesting that we live in this era of preemptive strikes. In the pre-World War II era, of course, the aggressor was always the bad guy. And Nazi Germany springing on Poland in 1939, or the Japanese surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, both of those, clearly they were the aggressor. And even though war talk had started and there were some tensions, they made the first move. And those are the good, just wars in U.S. history because the Japanese Empire and Nazi Germany were clearly the bad guys. So food for thought when we think about the United States indulging in preemptive strikes and waging war against a country that has not been an aggressor towards anyone and has only spouted more bullshit and propaganda and loud words and empty threats. And that's what all governments do. So anyway, so stating the obvious once again, the war in Iran is inevitable. In fact, the war in Iran has already been going on. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.